Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and here's one of the films that I was super excited about seeing the trailer for, as I'm a stickler for westerns, huge fan of westerns, and honestly over the past 2 years I felt like Christian Bale's been kind of to the wayside, and this is Hostel, starring Christian Bale as a captain who is notorious for doing terrible things to Native Americans, who has to help a notorious Native American chief get his way back home after being imprisoned for 7 years, taking a fun trip from New Mexico to Montana, and absolutely nothing bad could possibly happen along the way. Of course not. So, and we wouldn't have a story. And this is written and directed by Scott Cooper, and I thought that Scott Cooper did a really good job of balancing this film, and because there's a lot of characters coming in and out. I heard somebody compare this to Outlaw Josie Wales, where it's like a bunch of characters coming together as a group. Characters are coming in and out, and I felt like Scott Cooper did a nice job of balancing all that. In terms of pacing, I felt like parts of the first act kind of dragged a bit, and there were some slower moments. This film does take its time, but I felt like, for the most part, it was done in a constructive way that really felt like it was building tension, really letting you take in everything that was going on, including the cinematography, which I'll talk about in a second. And then the tone of this film is very dour. There's some very small moments of lightheartedness, and there's some very powerful emotional moments throughout this film. But overall, this is very dour, downbeat kind of film, dealing with a lot of dark things going on. And I have to say, in terms of the directing, and this is also an acting thing as well, I don't know how Scott Cooper directed Rosamund Pike in this film, but I felt like, especially in the opening sequence, which was very brutal and very tense, there are some obnoxious acting choices made by Rosamund Pike that I felt like took me out of the movie. And whether that was her choice or Scott Cooper leading her into those choices, I felt like the opening part of this film kind of dropped a little bit because of those bad acting choices. But then we're going to talk about the cinematography, which was breathtaking in this film, and I apologize if I completely butcher this name, Masanobu Takayanagi. And Takayanagi did such an amazing job, which I've heard some things like, this has been there, done that, John Ford did this like 70 years ago, blah 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 blah. The thing is, just because John Ford did it before doesn't mean it's not hard to make such a beautiful film, and this film is gorgeous. You get a real scope of everything going on and how epic this adventure is, because how breathtaking some of these shots, long tracking shots of a train of horses across the top of a ridge with the sun in the background, and it's breathtaking cinematography. And it really gives you a sense of, you're feeling like you're a part of this, and you're part of this adventure, this quest, this task, however you want to phrase it, but you're along for this ride, and you really feel connected with nature and what's going on around it, because this film is so beautiful and so well shot, and the lighting is great, and just how all these, like the action moments, intense moments of holding shots and being able to see everything going on when there's some chaos going on, and certain choices in terms of shots, what not to show, what to show. And this is breathtakingly gorgeous film, and I give a lot of props to Takayanagi. And in terms of writing, this is a very interesting story, and there's elements that have been done before, obviously, but I felt like this was a very powerful story and took turns that you wouldn't fully expect, and this really does hit home. And there's a lot of powerful moments, a lot of shocking moments throughout this film right off the bat, and I felt like this film was structured in a way that really set the tone. And in terms of the characters, Joe Blocker is such a great character right at the front of this film, played by Christian Bale. Rosamund Pike's character is a very interesting kind of addition to this group of people, and Rory Cochrane's character in this film has some very interesting tales that he tells, and Ben Foster as well. There's a lot of very well written, smaller parts in this film. I do have to say, I felt like some of the Native American characters, including this chief played by Wes Studi, were kind of underwritten. You didn't get a whole lot of time with them. There were moments where you really did get to feel them as characters and connect with them, but I felt like it would have been even more impactful if we got a little bit more time with them. And then Christian, like with the dialogue and everything, there's some great moments and some great dialogue throughout this film. And some of the talking moments were some of the best moments throughout this film, whether it's Christian Bale's character or Ben Foster or Rory Cochrane, and everyone getting to share these monologues, and they're so well written and so, like, they just drag you in and entrancing to listen to, and I thought they were fantastic throughout this film. And you get all these different characters coming from different perspectives, and this is a deep film really dealing with prejudice and really connecting with a people together and getting past that prejudice and realizing what we all connect with as human beings and what's really worth fighting for. And some of the best things about this journey is Joe Blocker, there's characters coming in and out that are pushing him in different directions, and you really get to see him grow as a character. And I love the ride that I was able to go on with that character. Now, the composer Max Richter, I think the score was great, very tense. I thought it was a perfect score to be placed over this film and really brought a lot out of the film and really allowed for emotional moments and elevating of scenes. When there's tension, there's some real tension, and then the score could also be very beautiful in certain moments, and I think that Richter did a great job with the score. Now, acting, in a different year, I think Christian Bale would be a front runner up there for Best Actor, and this one's kind of flying under the radar. Gary Oldman, Daniel Day-Lewis, Timothy Chalamet, and so many others this year getting a lot of Oscar buzz, and Christian Bale's getting none. And I do think he deserves some consideration because he was great in this film. And he had very emotional moments and really carried them, intense moments. And he was able to do so much with his stare and his physical presence and everything. And Christian Bale's a great actor. Wes Studi did a great job despite his minimal amount of time on screen. He really brings a presence. Rory Cochrane, which was the weirdest thing. I wound up watching like 3 movies with him in it this week. And he does a fantastic job as this friend of Joe Blocker, who is like the next level up of his. But he hasn't gone far enough, and he makes a comment, it's like, you kill so many, you don't feel it anymore. And Jesse Clemens has a moment with him where he's like, that's what I'm afraid of. And that's a very powerful moment, especially after the story that Rory Cochrane says, and he brings a lot of intensity. And Ben Foster as well. He doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but he really brings it, and he is what happens if this character, Joe Blocker, goes too far and reaches his purest form of just hate and prejudice and really gets eaten alive by that. And he tempts Christian Bale's character to that, and there's some great moments there. Rosamund Pike, I thought, was very good for parts of this film and really bad in other parts of this film. And I feel like the only performance I've actually seen her in where I was fully invested and really thought she did a great job was Gone Girl, and she's a bit hit or miss for me. Now, this is a gorgeous yet brutal film, yet this Western stands tall over its weaknesses because there are shortcomings of this film. It gets long in the tooth a little bit, and some of the characters, like the Native American characters, don't get as much, and there's some, as I mentioned, some weak acting moments from Rosamund Pike that kind of take you out of the film, but this is such a gorgeous film and such a powerful film that I think it elevates over that, and that's why I'm going to give Hostiles an A-.